Friends, with all due respect to our esteemed speakers, I cannot escape a distinction. While most of us have dealt in ideas and business, here is a hero who has dealt in blood. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a standing ovation for the General Malik who won us the Kargil War. I request Mr. Khargonkar to present a bouquet to Mr. Gurucharan Das to welcome on behalf of IMA. I request Mr. Deepak Bhandari to give floral welcome to General VP Malik. To welcome Mr. S.K. Goyal, I invite Mr. Saurabh Kalani. Thank you, sir. As Bhagwan Krishna said, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti, Dhruva Niti Mati Imam. Where able leaders and able disciples are there, you will find prosperity, victory, steadfastness and policy. So friends, 2,500 able disciples are eagerly waiting to imbibe learning from these two outstanding leaders. I request Mr. General Malik to enlighten the audience, please.
Anil wants the world to
a
think
small tribute to General Malik on audiovisual, please.
Mr. Goyal, Mr. Gurucharan Das, Mr. Mahesh Sharma, Mr. Jagdish Verma, and their colleagues of the Indore Management Association, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and my young friends. First of all, I wish to thank the Indore Management Association for giving me an opportunity to come back to Indore after a long time and to be able to interact with such a large audience, particularly with the young boys and girls who are going to be the leaders of tomorrow for our country. We've had excellent talks in the morning from Shri Narendra Modi, from Dr. Sam Petroda, and from Mr. Ravi Kant, all very distinguished leaders. And I'm sure all of us have taken some good advice from them. They were excellent talks, very practical, focusing more on technology, on the new environment that we are going to face in the 21st century, and how we have to adapt ourselves to those. But I would also like to emphasize along with that, I'm sure some of them mentioned it. I recall Mr. Narendra Modi mentioned it when he said urban facilities with a rural mind. What really means is that while you adopt all the new technologies, management techniques, and leadership qualities that are required for 21st centuries, don't ever forget and always remain an Indian. Those values are very important for any leader of our country. Now, I'm not an academic, nor I've had a long association with the corporate world. As you know, I've spent 4 years of training in uniform and then 42 years of remaining in uniform. You will not be able to hear any management jargon from me, and whatever I'm speaking today is totally out of my experience. So what you're going to get is what I think are the best practices of leadership, which I have imbibed or tried to imbibe in the army, and which I think are also very useful for any leader of tomorrow, including in the management world or in the corporate world. I've kept the topic leadership in the armed forces, but not forgotten the theme, which is leadership that transforms from ideas to icon. So I'm going to give you some example of very young people, how they have become an icon after the kind of training that they got in the armed forces and in their homes also, because sanskar is also a very important issue when it comes to leadership. In the army, we say that it is always the man behind the gun that matters. What really it means is that you may have the best of technology with you, but if the man and his mind is not working, that technology cannot be used. So therefore, even in the new world, while we continue to emphasize the utility, the usefulness of technology, don't ever forget the human being, because it is that human being which will make use of technology and which will deliver. So between the gun and the man, it is always the man which is important, the man behind that gun. And it is said, if you have good human capital, victory and rewards will follow. Even Sun Tzu said something similar to that. So the most important, when we are talking of human capital, is the quality of leadership. In any organization, whether it is armed forces, the corporate world, politics, social, any organization, you do require excellent leadership. Now, I have 4 takes on leadership, which I thought I must clarify right in the beginning. Those 4 takes. First one is whether you lead 5 people or 5 million, the basics and the essentials of leadership are the same, they don't change. We have section commanders leading 10 men, We have a company commander leading about 120 people, and we have the army chief who leads more than 1 million troops in war. But leadership qualities, the basics don't change. And that is why it is important for us to imbibe those basics in our young age. The second one, which is from a research done in Stanford University some years ago, and that says leadership is 12% knowledge and 88% dealing appropriately with people to get their best. So the knowledge is important, and we'll talk about this part a little later also. But 88% is how you deal with people to be able to get the best from those people. And the third one is sound character. Don't ever forget, sound character is common to leadership in all fields of work. And that forms the major component in sustaining leadership. Otherwise, the leadership also can, you become a leader one day for a short period and it withers away. But sound character sustains your leadership qualities and leadership in all the time to come. And the fourth one, leaders are very seldom born. In India, you are producing leaders from one politician to his children and all, but it doesn't happen elsewhere, and I don't believe much in that myself. Leaders are seldom born. They are a result of hard work, and there's no shortcut. Self-belief, Sam Petroda also said in the morning, opportunities that you get your way, and experience. As I told you, I became a chief from a second lieutenant, and it took me 38 years to become that. So these are the 4 takes I want you to remember when we talk about leadership. The most important aspect of leadership is to get the aim right, the idea right. What is your objective? And to remain focused on that. Because you will get many opportunities of leaving that, taking off on a different direction, on a tangent. Now that is what differentiates from a good leader to a not so good leader, because the good leader will keep his aim straight and remain focused on that till he achieves that objective. A successful leader has ideas, he knows what he wants all the time, and he remains focused on that and gets his team to implement them successfully. In the beginning of the Kargil war, in one of the Sainik Sammelan that I addressed in Kargil sector, Dras, I just told my people, I said, look, the enemy has started this fight, but the fight will end with our last shot, and we will dictate the terms for the victory. And that's what happened at the end of it. Now we talked about ethics, values, character, sound character earlier. I said one of the 4 traits we talk about. In that I include discipline, I include very high integrity, team spirit, dedication and duty, and moral courage. Discipline is not what you generally, people in civil life take the army to be. Banging of the boots, saluting, standing to Savdhan position all the time. That is not discipline. Most people don't understand. Discipline is really organizing yourself in a manner that you save your energy. You do things in a sequential manner. It comes to you automatically, and you don't waste your energy. Now that is discipline really. If you don't stop on the red light on a crossing, you will have an accident. If you don't stand in a queue, let me assure you, it will take you much longer time and a lot of harassment before you can achieve what you want to achieve in that queue. So discipline is way of organizing yourself in a manner that you save your energy. You don't waste your energy. High integrity, well, I mean, in India, where the corruption is such a common thing, that's why, because such a large number of politicians today are engaged in coda type activity, etc., that's why they don't have respect. So high integrity is an essential aspect of a good leader. Let's not miss that. Team spirit is extremely important. No individual in any way, in any organization can achieve the aim that he has set. It has to be a team, and you have to carry that team. We'll talk about this a little more, but the basic thing is that you must identify yourself fully with your colleagues and your organization. And this business of, somebody offers you 1,000 rupees more and you switch your jobs, I'm afraid it's not a very good practice. At least I don't look at it that way. Because, so team spirit is important. That just shows that you don't have that kind of team. You haven't been able to develop that team spirit. Dedication and duty, work with sincerity and commitment. There's a big message from Gita. I'm standing and speaking in front of Mr. Gucharan Das, who himself is an expert on Mahabharata, Gita, etc. But I think you learn all your important lessons of dedication and duty from Gita. Moral courage, you must uphold right values and principles. But the more important thing is that there will always be pressure on you. And if you can adhere to those, what you think is right, what you think is morally correct, now that is your test. And so therefore you must stay firm, have the moral courage, even under pressure. That's the important aspect. This is a credo that I learned in my very young days when I was in Indian Military Academy. And just goes to show that the country comes first, your subordinate comes second, and you come last, and every time. Even when I became a chief, this credo was there in my office all the time. Not only in my office, but it was also there in the visitors' room for anybody to see that these are the values that we have to carry on with in the armed forces. And these are not very different. When we talk of practicing these values, is not very different to what we are now trying to introduce as corporate governance. Corporate development, corporate governance, these are not contradictory, and these are the same thing that I've been talking about, the values, ethics and values. Just a few, I would say, leadership traits, important traits. One is, of course, professional knowledge, which will always remain important, which is never ending. You learn within your house, in-house, or you sometimes are asked to go outside and learn those things. Never hesitate. In the armed forces, in our younger days, at least 1 month every year, at least 1 month is spent on courses. I don't know how many courses I attended till I became a Major General. After that, of course, there was no requirement. But till that time, almost every first 1 year in the beginning, and then after that it became less frequent. But there were courses to be attended to. There was education to be had. Always remain updated, and as Gita says, on earth there is no purifier as great as knowledge. In the morning, people have spoken of these 4 important strategic awareness issues in different forms. I am putting them together. First is social, then is political, then is economic, and technological. Awareness of social, political, you may even call it sociopolitics, or economics, socioeconomics, and technological. These are important aspects of awareness, particularly in a diverse country like India, and also for globalization that is taking place. If you are going to work in Assam, well, you have to learn how the Assamese work, how they eat, how they drink, what are their how you can make the best use of being in that situation. So social awareness, political awareness, and technological awareness. Of course, the economic awareness has to be there. So these are important aspects, and you should never ever give up learning from them. I would always advise, spend more time on the newspapers, spend a little time on the TV channels, but you must remain updated on these aspects which are concerning you, particularly what is concerning you. That is the environment in which you have to work. That's why it is important. Action. I've taken this word again from the Gita, which is really application of knowledge and gaining experience. And I would say never hesitate from action. Action is really speaking, making use of opportunity that comes your way, and also gaining experience. So you must do it, as the Nike slogan says, and be a self-starter. Don't keep waiting for people to tell you that you have an opportunity. You must get that in your mind straight away. And there's a very good quote from Gita, again I have written down: all actions without exception culminate in knowledge. Knowledge and action both lead to supreme bliss. However, it says action is superior to knowledge. So unless you are able to make use of your knowledge and gain experience from that, then the knowledge is of not much use. Time and opportunity, these are also essential aspects. And the value of time is always in terms of being a little ahead of your enemy or your adversary. I wouldn't like to use the enemy in our own country, but let's say adversary or competition. You must remain slightly ahead. And again, I'm quoting Sun Tzu from his very famous book, The Art of War, where he says being a little ahead of your opponent has counted for more than either numerical superiority or the nicest calculation with regard to commiserate. And George Patton, another American general during Second World War, was a very well-known general during the European campaign. And he said, a good plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. So you don't keep waiting all the time to make your plan perfect and you miss the opportunities. Now, there is one more thing that this is what I've written: excessive delays in the name of information gathering breeds analysis paralysis. If you keep waiting, getting more and more input, taking your time to decide, procrastination in the name of reducing risk actually increases risks. Now this is a cycle which I want you to remember, and it is applicable to all aspects of your life. When you initiate any action, you are acting, you act. Now your action creates a new situation. You have introduced something, so it has created a new situation. So you observe that situation, what change has taken place, how it has taken place, right? And then you orientate yourself now in a new situation. Situation has changed. So in a new situation which has been now created, you change, you orientate yourself, and then you take a decision, another decision in the new situation, which leads you to act. So it's a cycle, what we call the OODA loop in the armed forces. OODA. Act, observe, orient, decide. And the time factor is important. They say anybody who can go through this loop faster than his competitor will always be the winner. So that's why time becomes very, very important. Your job is to go through this loop faster than your competitor. We've been talking about changes, and in any case, when we talk of strategic situations, I don't ever believe that they will always be dynamic. They are never static. Every time things are changing. Change, they say, is the only permanent thing in this world. So strategic situations particularly are always dynamic, and anticipation and management of change is always essential, both in the military leadership or in the corporate world. You must be able to anticipate, okay, this change is coming and I have to prepare for that change. 21st century we are talking of, we've already passed about 9 years of that. So we must anticipate what is coming. That's what in the morning Dr. Sam Petroda was wanting to say. A change comes on everyone, every time. It is something, as I said, is permanent. And there is a need for us to stay afloat in a changing world. So we must be able to anticipate change even when things are working right. Everything is working right. It doesn't mean that you go to sleep. You have to look कि आगे क्या होने वाला है. That becomes important. That's why people say dream, people, whatever you have to think ahead and you have to get ready for that kind of change. Managing change has a lot to do with your attitude. The first thing is have a right mindset. You know, your mindset must be prepared to change, because change also brings in a lot of resistance from some people. You have to overcome that resistance. Every time you change certain things, there will be some people who will resist. कि ये तो ठीक नहीं है. So you have to have the right mindset for that kind of a change. Innovation we've been talking about since morning. It is necessary all the time, but in a crisis situation, in wars particularly, it gets faster. Even Sun Tzu's quote, one of them, you cannot stop innovation. Let me give you 2 examples which won us the war. In 47-48, the army was able to send tanks on Zojila. Zojila is about 15,000 feet high. Nobody ever imagined that a tank will be able to go. How did we do it? We split that into so many parts. We carried them in covered vehicles, went and assembled it close to Zojila Pass, and then we exposed the enemy to the tanks. The only answer the enemy had was to run away from there. I mean, this is the example of innovation that I can give you during a war. In Kargil war, we were all in high mountains. There were some places where the enemy was tucked into caves kind of a thing. We couldn't engage, and he was able to see us not for a very long distance. Now we use small arms, ineffective. With artillery, it was very difficult to reach, although artillery has got very long range. One person came with an idea. He said, sir, I want to carry this gun, Bofors gun, to a place from where I can hit that enemy bunker straight. Direct firing, what we call. Not indirect firing, but direct firing. So we split the Bofors gun. We took it on a mountainside at a height of about 13,000 feet, assembled it there. With one gun, this person was able to pinpoint some of the bunkers on different hills and was able to engage them and destroy them up to a distance of 16 kilometers, sorry. Now that is innovation, idea. And you can imagine the effect it had on the enemy and on our own morale. So that is important. Innovation is, your mind should always be thinking that. And even, I'm just giving you a Peter Drucker's quote. I'm not so familiar as some of you are, but even he said that the second function of business, first of course is having a good customer, is innovation. That is the provision of better and more economic goods and services. Now innovation is not necessary only in terms of goods. It is also important in your organizational changes. That is also innovation. If you can change your organization to deliver things much better, much faster. So as you pay attention to details, you should continuously encourage your people in the organization to challenge the process and look for innovations all the time. But that is something which you need to encourage your people in the organization. Communication skills are becoming more and more important in the world. Of course, I have given this photograph of my icon from whom I learned communication. He was a field marshal who knew mostly Parsi or Gujarati, English of course, Gurkhali, more fluent than his own Hindi. And yet, he was able to communicate with everyone from a peon to a Maharaja, or king of Nepal and Bhutan those days. I saw his letters to those people. Now that is communication skill, to be able to communicate in the language, substance, style that your audience understands. That audience can be anyone, as I said, from peon, it could be a Maharaja or political leaders or whatever. And when you are speaking, you must be able to convey the sincerity in your voice, in your mannerism, the trust and the dependability. I'm speaking, you can depend upon me. That is the kind of a communication that you should be able to. Now this doesn't come automatically. This has to be practiced. And this has to be, you have to remain conscious of this all the time. And that is why the communication, which also includes eye contact, your mannerism, the way you stand, the way you walk, all that is part of communication today, and it becomes important. Sun Tzu, again I am quoting, if words of command are not clear and distinct, if orders are not thoroughly understood, the general is to blame. Quite often, when I prepare a draft letter, I give it to my very young colleague and I ask him, I say, please read the letter. Have you understood? If the answer is yes, I have understood, it's a good letter. If the person has any doubt, then I'm afraid I need to change that draft. So please remember, you have to acquire the correct communication skills. We talked about team. As I said, team building, running a team is the most important aspect in any organization. And in that team, as I said, it's always trusting each other. In the armed forces becomes important because you are trusting each other's life, you know. More people die because they want to save their comrade in war than they think of anything else, including motherland. Motherland is important, it's always at the back of the mind. But you will find that a very large number of boys give up their life because they want to help their colleagues, their buddies. So that is the kind of team spirit that you need to develop and relationship with your colleagues. Decentralization empowerment is becoming more and more important. You can't do everything in those flat organizations that we are getting because of IT capabilities, etc. So you have to look for decentralization and empowerment. And when you look at this decentralization, always remember the junior leader is required to lead the team in a field to achieve what goals the senior has laid down for him. I have laid down those goals, he is expected to achieve those goals with his smaller teams. And the job of the senior leader then is to facilitate the environment in a manner that whatever is his strategy, whatever his tactics are there, and whatever his tasks that he has given to his junior leaders, they are able to achieve those, they are able to, without much difficulty. So the job of a senior then becomes facilitating the environment and not doing everything. Doing everything is the job of your junior leaders. So that is what you have to keep in mind when it comes to decentralization and empowerment. Motivation is extremely important. It is the motivation that really gets people to do what you think is impossible. High level of motivation. And also please remember, you can't keep people motivated at the highest level forever. It's not possible. So remember, you can take them to the highest level of motivation for a short period and then relax and, in whatever job that you are doing. It is necessary to motivate people, to make them join your own organization, to make them stay there and to perform at their best. Spend more face time and your team. This is an unfortunate aspect of our modern day management. I find people in different cubicles in one room. They don't talk to each other face to face. They pass email messages to each other. Ye karo, wo karo and all. Now that, I am afraid, is not very good communication. That means that the ability to have face-to-face conversation, you're killing that. So in this new world, please remember that you must spend more face time with your teams. Face time means talking to them and being able to answer their questions, not all the time on this thing. And in the army again, there's one important saying, which says a visit on the ground is equal to 1,000 on the maps. You can look at the map 1,000 times, but the idea that you get after visiting the ground is more important. Well, we talk of motivation. You people, somebody said that I won the war. I didn't win the war. I was, in fact, not even involved in the detailed operational planning. There were people who were down the chain who were doing all that. But during the war, what I did really was to go and motivate people wherever it was. I worked on strategy, yes, but when it came to war, the actual battle situation, your job is to just go around, ask any difficulties, koi problem to nahi hai, and motivate people. Do not keep looking for approvals. If a poor leader believes, if I have not been told about it explicitly, I cannot do it. But a good leader believes that if I have not been told no explicitly, it means I can do it, and you should do it. This is also important. I mean, all the time looking over his shoulder, pata nahi mera boss ko kya chahiye, what does he want, or what does she want? Now, that's not a very good attitude. If you think, right, go ahead, do it, take initiative. You must. So, if you ask too many people for permission, you will inevitably come up against somebody who will say, it happens in the government more often, I can tell you, who will say, no, this cannot be done. Ye to possible hi nahi hai. File ke upar likh dega koi aadmi, a joint secretary will write one small sentence, and your proposal is had it then. So the moral of the story is, don't ask. Personality is always important for a leader. In the armed forces particularly, we are always careful how we dress, how we move about, etc. And again, you see personality which exudes confidence, which gives a can-do spirit. I like that quote on one of the advertisement which says, "Hum hai na." Just hum hai na. That means that, okay, don't worry, I'm there, let's go ahead, do it. So this can-do spirit must always be there in your team. But you cannot always be nice to everybody and getting to be liked always. Getting everyone to like you is a weakness. You will avoid the tough decisions, avoid confronting people when it is necessary, and avoid offering differential rewards based on differential performances. You see, the person who's done the maximum work, who's done the best work, he needs to be awarded accordingly. But if you are trying to be nice, the other person will mind it and all that, that will not work. So by trying to nice to everyone, regardless of their contributions, you're likely to get angry with only those people in the team who are the most creative and productive. So be careful of this. Do not be afraid to tick off or get rid of defaulters. Long ago, I read it in Time magazine, the most difficult job of a leader is to get rid of a defaulter. somebody who's made a mistake and you are afraid of telling. That's the most difficult aspect. But you must have that, will in you. Don't become a workaholic. Don't always run. Take leave when you have earned it. Spend time with your families. I don't believe in neglecting your families, because if your family is neglected, I'm afraid you're not going to last very long in the organization either. So you have to keep home happy, everybody. No one likes a grim workaholic or the pompous, pretentious colleague, like I'm sure you have all heard of Hari Sadhu advertisement again. If I had my way, I would send him to my adversary or my enemy, send him to Pakistan maybe. Achievement in life can be a heady drink. Be happy and content with your achievements, but never rest on them. I always tell youngsters that, look, when you start commanding people, it's a heady wine. It goes to your head because they will do whatever you are telling them to do. But if you sip that heady wine, you will enjoy it. You drink it fast, it will go to your head, you will fall flat on your nose, and you've had it. So be careful. I'm just going to give you some important pictures of Kargil war to show you how some of our youngsters performed. This is the terrain of, these are the photographs taken during Kargil war. This is the famous Tiger Hill. Another photograph of Tiger Hill. You see, this is the kind of terrain that on which our boys had to operate during that period. This is another photograph taken from a helicopter of Batalik sector. You notice the height, 14,000 to 18,000. This photograph was taken on 14th of May. And, the line of control, it is not marked on the ground. But I have tried to mark it on this, from this photograph, and it runs something like this. Okay, the political strategy as given to us was that India is a victim of intrusion, but it will exercise restraint. That means we were told, you will not cross the border, you will not cross the line of control. Don't ask me why did they do it, but they had some reasons, and so we followed that. I'm talking of the CCS, Cabinet Committee on Security. India will take all measures, including military, to ensure that intruded area is vacated. So we worked out from that political aim, we worked out our military aim and military strategy, and that was that we will threaten and maintain pressure on Pakistan throughout land, air, and sea borders, and we will create strategic imbalance for Pakistan. Be prepared to escalate the situation and launch forces across the border if necessary. That is what my understanding was with the Prime Minister at that time. And once or twice when he said that we will not cross the border, I said, don't make a public speech on that, because if we cannot do it, I will come back to you again on this. So that was our understanding. And retain balance on borders with China and Bangladesh. I just tried to explain this with one graphic, and you notice that this is what Pakistan did to us in Kargil, and this is what we made it visible to them. We organized our forces in more than 450 trains from all over on the western border, and they knew it that India will attack Pakistan if we are unable to vacate Kargil, not only on the land but on the sea as well as in the air. That was our military strategy. And that is what made Nawaz Sharif first run to China, ke inko piche karo, and then he went running to USA and signed that agreement with Bill Clinton on 4th of July, their Independence Day. But he asked for that meeting in desperation. So that was our military strategy. Now, as I said, vision and goal was made clear right in the beginning, and this is what is photograph taken during that Sainik Sammelan. Motivation, again you have to work for it. It can't be done on paper. You have to do it on the ground with people. Sound system is not working. Sound. Can somebody hear that?
On the night of 19th June, Captain Batra led the final attack onto point 5140, the most hostile and challenging mountain peak on the Tololing Ridge. The recapturing of 5140 opened the way for the final assault on Tiger Hills. We met Captain Batra, or Sher Shah as he was called by his men, when he was just getting ready for his next mission.
We had already decided our success signal before advancing for the attack, and it was like Bravo Company's success signal, "Oi Aaya," which was passed to our CO Colonel Joshi on the radio set. And after the another bunker was captured, my company's success signal was "Ye Dil Mange More." The guys were so highly charged up that they were wanting that some more bunkers should have been there, and we would have got the more chaps.
That was our young officer, Captain Vikram Batra, and you can see the level of courage, dedication, bravery, and the spirit, the level of motivation. I consider him to be an icon, not me. So we had many more like that. There's Major Acharya, and I am going to read out a letter that he wrote, his last letter to his father. Dear Papa, hope this letter finds you in the best of health and spirits. Thanks for your letter and card dated 14th of June 1999. W, his brother, he says, must be fine or else I would have heard. He was also in the army, his brother. We must understand that he would also be quite busy preparing for their share of game. We are also getting ready for our next task. Our unit now has to live up to the expectations of the army regiment as well as of the country. You know what, even the chief sent a letter of congratulations to the unit. I had sent a letter of congratulations after they had captured Tololing feature. It was indeed an honor for our unit to have been given such a task. Hard work and a sound ethos does have its merits, don't you think? We now have to work harder to preserve the hope and aspirations of our well-wishers. Please don't worry about casualties. It's a professional hazard which is beyond our control, so why worry? At least it's for a good cause. And then he quotes from Bhagavad Gita, which says that if you die in a war, you go to heaven. You know, he's written it in Sanskrit. No, we are not air maintained, but food is good, and we have a doctor with us. Yes, the Prime Minister's visit was a good motivation, good chap. He has assessed the Prime Minister. I'm quite a sight now with my unkempt beard and Vaseline all over my ugly face to counter the icy winds. Please tell Manam, that's his mother, that combat is an honor of a lifetime, and I would not think of anything less. What better way to serve the nation? I am proud to be in the infantry and especially in our illustrious battalion. Take care of your health as well as mothers. Don't worry and lose sleep. Tell a story a day of the Mahabharata to Charu, that was his young wife, so that your grandchild imbibes good values. Yours affectionately, Bablu. Charu, incidentally, delivered after we lost Major Acharya. Now that is the spirit. I'm just trying to tell you, that is the leadership quality and the spirit and the self-motivation that you find amongst the soldiers. There's another letter. Dearest Papa, Mama, Birdie, that's brother and granny. By the time you get this letter, I will be seeing you all from the sky, enjoying the hospitality of Apsaras. I have no regrets. In fact, even if I become a human again, I'll join army and fight for my nation. If you can, please come and see where the Indian Army fought for your tomorrow. As far as the unit is concerned, the new chaps should be told about our sacrifice. I hope my photo will be kept in the mandir. Whatever organ can be taken should be taken. Contribute some money to orphanage. Keep on giving rupees 50 to Ruxana, a small child that the battalion had adopted in J&K. Best of luck to Birdie, that's his brother. Never forget the sacrifice of these men. Papa, you should feel proud. Mama, so should you. Mama ji, forgive me for anything wrong I did. Okay then, it's time for me to join my clan of the Dirty Dozen. My assault party has 12 chaps. Best of luck to you all. Live life king size. Yours, Robin. Young captain with just about 3 years service. There's another long letter which Lieutenant Manoj Pandey wrote to one of his very close friends. I managed to get the copy of that letter from this friend. And in that, I'm just taking an extract. I don't know what will happen at the next moment, but I can assure you and all countrymen that certainly we will push back the intruders at whatever cost. June 1999. So that was the spirit. And there are 2 more icons. I've just taken a recent photograph on this. I don't know how many of you can recognize them. They are the bravest of the brave. Both of them, Yogendra Singh Yadav and Sanjeev Kumar, they got the highest gallantry award that the nation can give. Paramveer Chakra. And I have to say this, pity is not many of us know them in civil life. We know a lot of people who have done much less for the country. We take their names day in and day out. But the bravest of the brave who are living, who are with us, not many people. Do you know that when I see them, I always salute their medal that they have won in the war. That is the respect that I give them, even today. So motivation is an important aspect, and I also needed to be motivated in war. And the best motivation I got was whenever I visited these troops on the ground, not in army headquarters, not in South Block, because there everybody was, full of all the troubles that one can think of. But the boys in front on the border, they were really brave, and that's what I got my motivation from. So we had this Vijay, Operation Vijay, we got the Vijay, and the will to deliver was always high. Strategic operational planning, good leaders, camaraderie. But the spirit was very strong, and that is what my last message for everyone is: be a good leader, like the people that I have shown you on the slides. Be a good leader and help growth of good leaders in your organization. Thank you, and Jai Hind.